Hey guys, welcome to my first look video on Audi's brand new RS6 Avant Performance. I'm out here in beautiful sunny Germany with Audi UK to watch the N24 event at the Nürburgring, and I was lucky enough to be thrown the keys to this to drive out here. There is a driving embargo on this car until sometime in July, so I'm going to try and scoot around my driving impressions and talk about the facts and figures, and then we're going to relive yesterday's journey of driving out here from the UK. This flagship RS6 Performance was actually announced at the end of last summer, and when I picked up my lovely RS6 long-termer around October last year, I think I announced in my initial video that you could no longer order the regular, if you can call it that, RS6. You could only at that point, and up until now, order an RS6 Performance trim. And I'm glad to say it's not just a marketing label that Audi Sport have put on the existing C8 RS6. As with the non-performance model, there are 3 trim levels. So there's the base RS6 Performance, which is essentially this car, starting at £109,500. There's then the Carbon Black Edition, which is 118 odd thousand pounds. And then we have the flagship Vorsprung, which is 127,000 pounds. And there are some options you can add on most of those models on top of that base list price. This one has a couple of those. Perhaps the most obvious option on this base model are those beautiful 22-inch milled alloy wheels. Now they come standard on the Carbon Black Edition and standard on the Vorsprung, and I think you'd be mad not to spec them on the base car. They're 2,250 quid, but they look like $1 million. They also save 5 kilos per corner, so that's 20 kilos of unsprung weight compared to the regular 22-inch alloy wheels that we know from the non-performance RS6, like the long-termer that I had. On top of those, this press car has the £4,500 Technology Pro Pack, which includes things like the panoramic glass sunroof, heated rear seats, night vision, some fancy parking aids, and a few other bits and pieces. It's probably a pack that most people are going to go for on their base RS6 Performance. So the retail price of this particular car is actually closer to about £117,000. So it's a lot of money, but as we're about to find out, it's a lot of car. And Audi Sport haven't stopped there with the weight saving. Continuing on from the 20 kilos that you save going for these wheels, they've also managed to take out about 25 kilos of sound deadening in the cabin. So you lose weight and you gain a bit more engine and exhaust sound, apparently, because I'm not allowed to talk about driving impressions, but that's what I've read in the literature. As with all C8 RS6s, this Performance retains the rear wheel steering, but they have tweaked it. They've also added some torque vectoring on the rear differential, so it's going to be interesting to see what that feels like when I'm really pushing it in my review that is coming very soon. Under this big Tango red bonnet, we'll find a familiar 4-litre V8 twin turbo, except unlike the RS4 competition, Audi have actually played around with this. They've added a bit of extra boost, which in turn has given us an extra 30 horsepower and 50 newton meters of torque. That now means that this RS6 Performance has 630 horsepower and 850 newton meters of torque. That is mated to the familiar ZF 8-speed automatic gearbox, although Audi claim they have done some software updates to that gearbox so it produces slightly quicker shift times. So when you factor in those quicker shift times, the extra power, the extra torque, the reduced weight, Audi claim this will do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 3.4 seconds. That's 0.2 of a second quicker than a regular RS6, and it will go on to a limited top speed of 174 miles an hour. I believe you can lift that by buying another pack, which I think is included in the Vorsprung trim, but don't quote me on that, and that lifts that limiter up to 189 miles an hour. Of course, I'll be testing both the top speed and those acceleration figures in my review that will be coming to the channel sometime in July. Before we jump inside, something we haven't talked about is styling and how the RS6 Performance looks. I've always been a massive fan of the C8 in general, even your average A6 2-litre TDI. The RS6, well, it looks mighty. Yes, its nose and frontal area maybe aren't as nice as the C7, and much of that has to do with modern regulations like pedestrian safety, etc. The nose tends to be a bit thinner, just like it is on the G80 M3. But when you combine those new 22-inch milled wheels that just look fantastic, and the fact that they complement all of the titanium trim that's scattered around this car, and the wing mirrors, the door frames, around the rear diffuser there, along the sills, and the canards around the front, just continues. And I think it all comes together so well. This Tango red paintwork definitely helps. And during the 36 odd hours that I've had this car, it has received so many compliments. It also has black Audi badging, which is standard on this Performance trim, and I think that just adds to it once again. It's such a good looking car. Jumping inside, and nothing really seems to have changed. It is a shame that Audi haven't offered those wonderful carbon bucket seats that you can get in the RS3 Performance and the RS4 competition. They definitely fall short compared to the seats that are in an F90 M5 or M5 competition, as far as I'm concerned. And as does the driving position in the C8 RS6. It's not bad, it could be better, but the cabin itself is so well put together. It's really striking. If you've never been in a current A6, S6, RS6, you will be blown away because it's just beautiful in here. There's leather everywhere, contrasting stitching. This has got a really nice aluminium trim. Looks good, but I fear that on sunny, bright days like today, you might get some reflections, but there's definitely a wow factor in here. The Performance does add a little bit of Alcantara on this base trim car, so you get it in the door cards, you get it on the wheel here. I believe if you go higher up in the trim levels to the Carbon Black Edition or the Vorsprung, you also get Alcantara headlining. You get some fancy honeycomb option colours on the seats as well, and a few more bits and pieces that basically make the cabin feel like it's a little bit more premium, and you're in a bit more of a special model, if you like. They have made some changes to the virtual cockpit, so when you go to the RS modes and you get the RS display, which I'm still not as fond as the older RS display that had the big circular dial in the middle. That's still my favourite, and I think that still exists on cars like the R8, TTRS, etc. But this isn't bad, and they've improved and changed the shift up lights, which again we'll play with in the main review more. It's a big car, as I talked about in a twin test that I did recently, RS6 versus M3 Touring, which I suggest you watch. There's a link to that up here. And yes, I do take my bias cap off, and I don't give a clear winner because both cars offer very different packages, and I'm sure that will be the case with this RS6 Performance. And if anything, it should bridge some of those slight downfalls that the regular car has and bring it a little bit closer in terms of driving dynamics to the M3 Touring. But I don't know that yet, and we will talk about that once I do the review. And as we talked about on the outside, this particular press car does have the Technology Pack Pro, which does include the pan roof, although I always forget that in the RS6 it's slightly different, and I really like it. Rather than having one big piece of glass that goes back, or continuous piece of glass, which it does look like on the outside, when you jump inside, where you've got two separate sunroofs. The front one tilts and slides. The rear one doesn't do anything, but you can independently close and open the rear blind, and obviously you've got a blind for the front one as well. So in a way it kind of works best, especially if you're using it as a family car. Not only opens up the cabin and the interior, but it gives the rear occupants a chance to open and close that particular sunroof. If you had young kids back there, or baby seat, whatever, you could close that, stop the direct sunlight coming in. It's a really nice cabin. It's a nice place to be. Does it feel like 120 odd thousand pounds worth? Well, in this day and age, yes it does, because everything, as we know, is going up in price. And although this particular C8 variation of the A6 is getting on now and will be replaced in the next, I don't know, 12 to 18 months, it certainly doesn't feel old-fashioned in here. It's aged really well, and yeah, it's definitely a nice place to sit, nice place to be. And on that note, why don't we rewind to yesterday morning? You can join me in central London in this car, and we can travel out to the Nürburgring together. You join me at 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning, leaving the centre of London. This is Mayfair. I've been staying at the Intercontinental Hotel just off Park Lane, because Audi had Audi Sport 40th anniversary dinner at Theo Randall's restaurant. Theo's a Michelin star chef, and he also is an Audi brand ambassador. So it was fantastic, really good food. This is a very familiar hunting ground for me, sitting in stationary traffic on Park Lane. Obviously from my chauffeuring days, I used to spend a lot of my life in this sort of square mile of London. We're now going around Hyde Park Corner, which is probably the London equivalent of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. Nowhere near as bad, but still quite a daunting place to navigate around, especially in something the size of an RS6. See, I'm being cryptic there, aren't I? I'm not the size of an RS6 Performance or an RS6. It's the same size, same dimensions. So I'm not talking about the car specifically. Anyway, we're going down now towards Buckingham Palace. That is, well, now the King's Gardens over to the right. I was actually lucky to have a look around those gardens with Lou last year, probably last summer around this sort of time. In fact, it was exactly this sort of time, because I had an R8 at the time that I was driving straight from there down to the N24 with Audi. So yeah, fascinating, as you can imagine. Just the most beautiful gardens, really, really is picturesque. The speed limit here, as it is in the majority of at least central London, 20 miles an hour, which does feel pedestrian, but at the same time, to be honest, with traffic loads in London, if and when you used to be able to get up to, let's say, 30 miles an hour, you would only get to the next set of traffic lights and be stationary for longer. So actually 20 miles an hour in central London, especially during daylight hours when it's busy, it's not that bad, you know. It's not that bad at all. That is Buckingham Palace, where of course the King lives now. I've been telling people it's where the Queen lives for the past 40 plus years, but that's where the King lives now. So yeah, that's all new. And that Kia just went straight through a red traffic light. Of all places to go through a red traffic light, probably not the best around here. There's a fair amount of police, as you can imagine. Anyway, I'm going to hit the time lapse. Waze, which I've got connected via Android Auto, is currently telling me, let's have a look, arrival time. It's basically saying an hour and 57 minutes, so 2 hours until I get to the tunnel. I will whack the time lapse on and I will join you at the tunnel. At least we've got some nice weather, hopefully, for the entire journey. Just arriving at the Eurotunnel in Folkestone, a very familiar place to me. I must have been here 100 times over the past 15 years. The journey out of London actually wasn't too bad. It was a bit sticky in central London going along the embankment, but then it was fairly easy going. And in fact, it took us about an hour and a half to get here. Oh, nice McLaren in front of us. I'm not going to try and call out which one because I'll probably get it wrong. It does look like a 720. In fact, the last time I was here, I think there was a P1 in front of us when I was driving that X5M with Patrick and my parents. But anyway, oh, I've gone a bit too far. It's a problem with talking to the camera. Now, because I'm going with Audi, I'm traveling Flexi Plus, which is like the business class. Essentially, you miss out on a lot of the queues, you get priority boarding, you basically grab as much food and drink as you want. So, although Flexi Plus is a lot more money, it does save you time, give you convenience as well, because you can basically jump on any train you like. In other words, at the moment I'm planning on coming back on Sunday night, but if the weather's good I might come back on Monday night because I don't need to be home till Monday night. So I can just stay an extra day. I don't need to rebook a train. I don't need to pay extra to change that. So it is good, but it is a lot more money. And whenever I travel privately now, I always just use the normal standard returns. Right, we're going through security, so I better kill the cameras because I might get in a little bit of trouble.
The door is open.
Made it through security fairly quickly. There's barely anyone here. It's lovely. Really, really nice. I think the last time I came through here it was very, very busy. Now we're heading to the Flexi Plus lounge. Gonna grab a load of food. Maybe stick it over here. I think I succeeded in the amount of food and drink I managed to get from the Flexi Plus lounge. I have got more before, but I am on a bit of a diet at the moment, trying to lose some weight and exercising lots, which is great. Very good for the mental health side of things too. So I was a little bit conservative, but that will definitely keep me going for today and snack-wise probably tomorrow. I've just been chatting to the lovely chaps in the 720S McLaren, which is now behind me. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but they're heading over to Germany to hit some Autobahns and enjoy the car. And we literally just had a 2-minute chat, which consisted of talking about the fact that having a nice, powerful car in the UK, even something like a hot hatch, there's just no point. You can't really enjoy it anymore because of speed limits, congestion. It's too dangerous anyway. And I always say so many times, and that's why I do so many road trips to mainland Europe, and I know that it's not cheap and not everyone can afford to do that, but if you're gonna do a trip, a road trip, then honestly get on the train or on the ferry and get over to mainland Europe, because it's just so much better and easier to enjoy your car, whether it's on an Autobahn or through the Alps or the Pyrenees. We're just loading onto the train now. This is the tall and wide carriage. In fact, there's a Bentley in front of us and you can see that they have a good 8 inches either side of their wheels, which is just such a blessing compared to the regular carriages on these Eurotunnels. So make sure you do say that you have roof racks on or bikes on the roof or whatever, if you are driving a large and wide car and you don't want to curb your wheels, because it is tricky on the regular carriages in a car like this, or a car like the Bentley, or a car like the McLaren 720S. We're on the 12:20 train, so it's essentially 2.5 hours after we left central London. It's not too bad really. I think that's fairly good going. So I'm going to turn the cameras off and enjoy my coffee and tuck into some of that lunch. Train journey is about 35 minutes over into France, which is pretty easy going. And here we are in sunny France. It's just past 2 o'clock, and yeah, it's a fairly painless journey. Something to bear in mind when you're on the train is remember to do some useful things, like set your speedo so it shows kilometers. Make sure your headlights, because most modern cars have got adjustments now inside the settings, so that if you drive at night, your headlamps are facing the right direction. So there's a left-hand drive and a right-hand drive setting for that. And make sure you have your nav ready to go. In fact, here we go, there's a sign saying we're now officially in France. Yeah, make sure the nav's running, because obviously 2 minutes after coming off the train, you've got to make a decision as to which direction you're going in, and you don't want to head off in the wrong direction. So I've got my Android Auto set up, I've got my Waze set up, and yeah, looking forward to this journey. It's taking us through Belgium, which is kind of the there's that lovely McLaren. Good lads, really good lads. Anyway, I will put the time lapse on and join you a bit later, hopefully on a nice stretch of Autobahn, and we'll be able to see what this car can't do, because I can't talk about driving impressions, so you just have to take in the scenery and maybe a little bit of whatever the speedo's saying. I can't say anything. We've been going for almost exactly 3 hours actually since we left the train, and we are arriving into Germany now. So we've been across the top of France, through Belgium, which was actually pretty traffic free, which never happens, and now we're essentially on an Autobahn, and that's it. I turn the cameras on and we're on a de-restricted bit of the Autobahn, heading towards Aachen, and then across a bit of Germany before we dive down to the south. So I'm going to switch these cameras off, and I'm going to put a head cam on, and yeah, just have a little bit of fun on the Autobahn. It is just gone 5 o'clock though, so it's essentially rush hour, although it looks remarkably well, relatively clear, let's just say that. After a bit of fun on the Autobahn, you literally peel off, and then you have 20 minutes of beautiful, windy, scenic roads, and you're here at the Nürburgring. This region is just a beautiful part of Germany, the Eifel region. It's just surrounded by the most amazing countryside that undulates, just like the Nürburgring itself. It's a nice M3, and there is the Nürburgring sign. Very cool to be back here. I love this place. I've got some very good friends out here, Misha being one of those, and looking forward to hanging out with him and catching up with him. I feel like I see him every day because I watch all of his videos, as I'm sure most of you guys do. But yeah, it's a great atmosphere. The weather's actually looking like it's going to be good. I know I keep going on about the weather, but I'm British, so what I have to do tonight actually is go and get my accreditation from the accreditation centre, which is just next to the petrol station, which most people use at the Nürburgring, because that's got things like my parking pass. I usually park in that car park there actually, and then my office, my main accreditation that allows me to get in to the paddock and various places around the Nordschleife itself. But unfortunately, the accreditation office apparently closes at 6, and it's 20 past 6. So, and they're German, so it's probably 6 on the dot. But fingers crossed, maybe there's someone that's still there that can help me. In terms of time, well, it's now just approaching 6:30 local time, so that's 5:30 UK time, which in my head means that it's about 7 hours door to door, something like that, which isn't too bad at all. Remember, about an hour and a half of that, an hour and a bit of that is the actual tunnel itself. That's the Dottinger Höhe just there, the straight. You can see people up on the bridge watching some of the action. There are loads of viewpoints that you can go and watch for free if you come to the N24, but I don't think tickets are particularly expensive. I've been very lucky that I've always come with Audi over the past, let's say, 5 out of 6 years because of COVID, and then I think I came with BMW twice as well. It's just a brilliant event, really is. You won't find a hotel in the vicinity unless you book well in advance, so make sure you either book well in advance or you just go and find a hotel half an hour away, because wherever the hotel will be, I can guarantee there'll be some good roads leading back up to the circuit itself. You can still hear the cars screaming past. That on the other side, that's Devil's Diner basically through there, which is the Touristerfahrten car park. Two Lambos do look good, Lambos, but they're just not mine. The Hurricanes look very good, but they're just not my cup of tea. Lovely Audi sport sign. That is so iconic. I love it. It looks fantastic at night, and obviously it fits in very well with this video. So here is the gas station where you'll see all the prototype cars and all sorts of things in there, and obviously utilize if you need to fill up with gas. And here is where the accreditation centre is. So I'm hoping that I'm able to pick it up, but I have a feeling that I'm going to be too late. Anyway, let's just put this in here. Well, unfortunately, the offices had just closed and there was no one in there to be seen. So fair enough, I was late. It was past their opening hours. So I'm now heading over to Apex, which is where essentially my good friend Misha lives. Apex, if you don't know it, is a fantastic hotel that's out here. And they also have rental cars, they have ring taxis. It's a one-stop shop, if you like, and I can't recommend it high enough. I've stayed there several times over the years, and I think at the back end of 2021, September, October time, I spent a whole week there, and it was just brilliant. So good. We've just gone past the Touristerfahrten car park, which is where you would normally do your tourist drives, and actually on a normal week, because what is it, Thursday at 6:45, you could go out and do some laps. I mean, I wouldn't be doing laps in this because it's not insured to go out there, and I certainly wouldn't be able to afford covering the cost of this if I did put it into a barrier, and you'd have to pay for the barrier and all the recovery services, etc. out here at the ring. There's a lot of costs involved if you do go wrong out here, and that's perhaps the side of being out here that I'm not the biggest fan of. I really like coming out here for the atmosphere. I like coming out here for passenger laps, but actually doing laps on the ring itself do scare me a little bit, just because of the expense involved, or the potential expense involved. I say that, what have I just done to my M2 around Bedford? I mean, of all places, Bedford, a gear change, and well, we still don't know what that's going to cost me. So yeah, you just don't know, you never know. Anyway, we are just about to turn off. This is Apex on the left, and Piston Klaus steak restaurant is just behind Apex as well, so it's a great area. So there's cones out. Let's see if I can get through those cones. I reckon I can get through there. Yeah. Let's have a look. There we go. Right. I'm going to end today's video here and pick it up at some point soon.